Welcome to an episode of InRange. We've got on the table today a smorgasbord of Berettas, and part of this conversation started because a while back I acquired one of these, which is the Beretta Performance model.
Yep, the 92X.
92X. This thing is it is performance oriented. It has an excellent trigger, whether it's DA or cocked and locked. I mean, take the safety off. The trigger is excellent, DA or otherwise, but it has some interesting deficiencies too, in my opinion. One, it's incredibly heavy. I would never carry this anywhere. I would only use it in match.
Right.
And I actually took the red dot off because it had a plate and then the red dot, and it was like this billboard hanging off the gun, and it was way off board.
Very, very tall, and compared to a lot of other red dot equipped pistols, the presentation is different.
So to be honest, I first got this, and I think it's a great gun, and I bought it thinking this is the bee's knees, and then I'm not so sure, to be completely honest. Yeah. So what do we got here?
So this is a Beretta 92 GTS.
Okay.
And while it has the same optic cut on the top,
Yeah,
as
it's
your
identical.
92X Performance, the main difference with this gun is it's an aluminum frame, so it's a lot lighter. It uses the thinner standard slide, like those use Brigadier slides that are thicker, more mass. And the GTS aspect is it has a frame-mounted decocker. So it is DASA, but if it's in single action mode, you decock it by pushing up on the frame-mounted decocker rather than having a safety on that.
So this is cocked and locked. This is essential. Well, this could be DA.
Yes.
But to do DA, you have to do the scary thing. You take the safety off, and you have to, with your thumb, pull the trigger and lightly lower it without accidentally firing it.
Right.
This provides a mechanical decocker, which means it is safer to do.
Correct.
Which someone might prefer if they're looking to carry it as a carry gun, right?
Right. So all around, the 92 GTS is more set up to be a carry or duty gun than a competition dedicated gun like the 92X Performance.
So I mean, it really is just wow, it is significantly lighter. This is significantly lighter. Really, this is just an evolution of the 92, though, right? I mean, like, how much is it, besides it being slide mounted, how much does this really differentiate it from just a regular 92? I guess optics cut.
Optics cut. The barrel is a 4.7-inch barrel versus the 4.9-inch barrel.
Well, I'm thinking of the old 92, like the FS.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, the 92 FS also has a 4.9-inch barrel.
Okay.
So
0.2.
Right.
But I mean, this is just an evolution of the 92 FS. If I think of this, what I think of as a carry gun, you got optics cut,
yep,
you got rail, and you got slide mounted controls instead of, frame mounted controls instead of slide mounted controls. Slide mounted controls suck.
Right.
Okay.
So, and honestly, that's why I purchased this one, as I never really was into 92s because of the slide mounted controls.
Yep.
But having that there, very natural action and very easy to use in ambidextrous nature. Of course, I can also reverse the mag release as well.
Yeah. One of the things about this, that the reason I liked this, and I still do in this regard, is this controls being placed on the frame change that quite a bit. Even if it is a safety instead of a decocker, because on the slide mounted control, when I was using a regular old school 92, when I was running the slide, I would accidentally engage it, and then I would go to fire, and it was on safe, and it's like no bang. And on the frame, that problem was mitigated.
Right.
So I think as long as the control's on the frame, I think it's up to you as an individual if you care about SA, cocked and locked, or DA, decocker. I don't think it makes that big a difference. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay.
So interestingly, I got this much earlier in the year, and I literally ran a mag through it and then shot Handgun Brutality with it, and won our Iron Sight division with it, just right out of the box.
So the gun handled well for you. Good to go.
Yep. Then I used it again at Woodland Brutality in American Standard Division, and worked well for me there. The one weird thing I had happen, I've never run into this before with fiber optic front sights, is there was a variable lighting condition on one stage because we're under tree cover, which we don't deal with a lot in Arizona.
No, we just have constant baking sun.
Right. So there was a weird variable lighting condition where the targets were kind of in shadow, but the sun was coming down through the trees and made the fiber optic just bloom out.
So interesting.
And it totally flared out over the target, and I had a very hard time hitting the target.
I remember you struggling with that now in retrospect.
And On the other stages where it was more consistent lighting
You were
conditions,
fine.
I didn't have any issue with that.
But that was interesting because you were in light, the target was in dark, the fiber optic went blink, and it kind of obliterated your sight picture.
Right, and with the slight astigmatism I have, it was like very large.
Ironically, the opposite would have been okay if the targets were lit, but you weren't.
Right.
I'm not a fan of fiber optic. I gotta tell you.
I generally like them, and
Mhm.
I use them on my carry guns here in Arizona, but I don't deal with variable lighting conditions like that, like
Yep.
almost ever.
Yeah.
So that was a unique combination of circumstances that I probably wouldn't have run into anywhere else.
Fair enough.
And I guess we can move on to, this is a second 92 GTS I got, and the main thing I did here is I got the optic plate from D-Law Designs.
D-Law.
Yeah, D-L-A-H-A.
Okay.
And
D-Law.
And what's unique about this is it gets the optic much lower than the factory mount, even using the same type of optics.
So you've got a plate, it's just a much thinner plate.
It is a much thinner plate, and the reason he can do that Beretta didn't is there is a firing pin safety that moves out of the way as
I see it.
as it's pulling the trigger there.
Yep.
And he has a smaller one that's been modified to fit under the plate.
So you have to replace that when you're doing this.
Right, which really wasn't a big deal. It was like driving out a single roll pin, swapping the parts around, putting it back together.
Okay.
But Beretta's plates and a lot of the other ones on the market are made to have that go up into it and clear into the plate. So it inherently makes the optic taller.
You would think it wouldn't need to, though, because if they really wanted to, the plate could be cut and they could just have a cutout for just that portion.
Well, it does generally, but there's the cutout plus clearance, and
Okay.
then it just kind of stacks
So
more.
that's the reason it stacks so high.
Right.
Okay.
So, I mean, you take a look through this one versus what you remember on your other one.
Oh, yeah. No, that's natural. That
Yeah.
feels natural. What happened was I kept bringing this up, and I literally, like, I brought this up, and I can see it right now. It was instant. I brought this up, and every time, and I'm talking about, not the first time I used it, I'm like the 18th time I used it. I'm coming up, and I'm like fishing for the dot. And that amount of time fishing, I was like, I might as well go back to my Glock because I don't have that problem anymore. Or just go with the irons because I was faster with the irons because I could pick them up quickly.
If I recall correctly, on average, it's about 200 thousandths lower with this mount versus the factory mount. It doesn't sound like a lot.
It makes a huge difference.
But it makes your presentation more like every other gun you use.
Yeah, that felt natural to me. This, I could never get used to it.
Yeah. So a couple of other interesting things with the GTS versus other Berettas is the flat face triggers from Beretta don't work in these. Like you cannot.
Okay.
It messed up the reset,
Mm-hmm.
so I had to put the regular curve triggers back in where they work fine in the normal like 92X performance and normal 92s. For whatever reason, with the way this decocks, it doesn't make the hammer mechanism work quite the same way.
Do you know if this De La plate and its therefore modified firing pin safety will work in the performance?
Yes, in fact, I have it installed on my 92X.
Okay, so you
too.
could do this to the performance and have the same.
Yes.
So sounds like I want to.
Yes, you'll want to buy one of those plates.
Yeah.
The one slight detail is they are all dedicated to the particular optic versus being multi-optic functional, even between stuff like the Steiner MPS and the Aimpoint Acro, which uses.
That's technically acro pattern though.
But they are different on his sight because the sights are slightly different enough. He has designed each one of them to get as low as possible.
So I got to tell this guy I'm using an acro.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Now the performance is big dollars. We don't need exacts. What are we talking about here?
I think MSRP on these is like around 800 to 900.
Substantially less than the performance.
Yeah, and the performance MSRP is like 1500. So.
And then of course we've always heard lore about these breaking a lot, right? They're supposed to break the slide.
I think
heard about that?
I think that was solved a long time ago.
Yeah, remember that was a thing for a while. That was the hotness, is the slides are breaking. I never saw it in person. I only saw it on the internet.
Yeah, I've never seen it with modern guns. Supposedly there was some 92X performances that were blowing out barrels, but we both put a lot of rounds through ours at this
I've
point,
shot this a lot, yeah.
and haven't seen anything like that.
And personally, I'm there for that. It never happens. It's a great video.
Yeah.
If this gun exploded, I'd be like, that's going to get a lot of views, right?
Right.
Yeah, but it never did. So come on, live up to your standards. Anything else? I mean, it sounds cool. I mean, lower price, lower weight. So this is carryable. A way to mount a lower optic, which I'm going to do to this gun. Thank you for bringing that to the table. You've got a magwell on this.
Yeah, so a detail about that, like the Beretta ecosystem of parts is pretty dependent upon itself. There's not as much aftermarket support for Berettas as there are for a lot of other pistols. So this Beretta magwell requires that you use their base pad, which you got Beretta right there.
Kind of like we saw with that Turkish 9mm.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the Turkish 9mm magazine? You had to push in with your pinky.
Yeah.
But if it had a different base pad, you wouldn't have that problem.
Right.
Yeah.
But you can also use the 20-round magazines
Because they stick out.
But you have to take off the plastic shell that goes around the outside of it. So they normally come with a plastic hoop around it.
They do.
And you gotta, if you pull that off, then they work in it just fine.
Okay, cool. Well, this is interesting. It's interesting to see the evolution of the. I mean, this is a crazy gun in this regard because the Beretta 92 is really, in all intents and purposes, a improved Walther P38.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking 1940s here, World War II German stuff, right? The Italians took the P38 and continued it into the 92 series. Well, there was guns before it, but that turned into the 92, and it was such a good design, the military adopted it. And here we are seeing that same mechanism from the 40s still being implemented in modern platforms in the guise of these guns on the table.
Yep.
So they got something right.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're pleasant guns to shoot.
Oh, they are. Yeah, that's one of the big improvements of it.
The recoil dynamic of the 92 series is just smooth. There's not a lot of muzzle flip to it. Obviously, the heavier you go, the less there is.
Of course.
And even the double action trigger pull on these is nice and consistent.
There's an example of something getting much better. The P38 DA trigger pull is like ridiculous. It's like grinding through a rock quarry, and it's like 30 pounds. And this, of course, being a performance gun, it's nothing. In fact, it is so close to this. It's not so close, but it's close enough to the single action press that it doesn't make a big difference in terms of your accuracy.
So give your impression on the DA of that one versus the DA of this one.
Okay. We clear it every time because we're on the YouTube, you know. The cock. It's not quite as good.
It's not quite as good, but it's not far off.
No. I would say within 10%.
Right.
Well, what else is this? What's your thought process here? You're going forward with these? Are you a Beretta man now?
I like using different handguns because it's one of the things I can actually switch guns around on.
That's funny. You don't with rifles, but you do with handguns.
Right. Well, I make rifles for a living, so I'm pretty obligated to use the rifles I make.
That's fair.
But I can shoot a lot of different handguns and have my different impressions on those objectively.
You got to start making handguns so you can just shoot the same thing for the rest of your life.
Well, when I was making Glock parts, I only shot Glocks.
That's
so I'm
true.
not making Glock parts anymore.
That's fair. So it's interesting to see the evolution of the Beretta series. Do you know if anything's coming next, or is this where we're at right now?
I haven't heard anything, but SHOT Show's in like 2 months, so I'm sure they'll have something else new out for 2025.
Yeah, fair enough.
But what's interesting is there haven't been a lot of sales on 92s versus the other Beretta pistol lines. That kind of tells me that the 92 is still a consistent seller
because it's a good gun
versus some of the other more modern designs.
Oh, now someone's gonna think that I meant this. What is it? The CX4 Storm isn't a good gun. I don't know, but I mean the 92 has a lifespan and a legacy, and people understand what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to say thanks for bringing those out. This is cool. It's interesting to see the evolution of it. And I want to say thanks to the viewers because it's possible to do these videos because of patreon.com/InRangeTV. It may not necessarily buy individual guns all the time, but ammo, stuff, things, right? And it makes it possible to do these videos at all. So if you already are a supporter, thank you so much. Every dollar counts. If you can't be, click the bell, click subscribe. Probably won't get a notification anyway, but share with your friends because you can be the organic algorithm for us against the inorganic, awful God algorithm of YouTube. Stay tuned.